I've learned a lot over the last decade of working closely with rabbits, something that no book or belief system or philosophy handed to me. I learned it by watching, paying close attention, by sitting on the floor and earning trust from a creature that someone else taught to be guarded and defensive. I witnessed fear slowly give way to the rabbit feeling safe with me. That kind of trust was not freely given. I had to pay a price set by a different human, a person who did not respect the base nature of that animal, a human who thought it was just a rabbit, a human that taught the rabbit the uncaring and even cruel side of humanity. I've rehabilitated many rabbits over the years, different breeds, different backgrounds, different levels of neglect, and I've had a few that did not come from harsh beginnings, but most of them were mishandled. Some were abandoned when they became inconvenient for the prior owner, and some were rescued from backyard breeder situations or those rabbit meat farms. It wasn't true of all of them, but most of the rabbits placed in my care arrived afraid, fearful, that I was just another one of those people who intended them harm. They bit, they kicked, they lunged, they froze. Not because they were bad, but because fear had taught them how to survive. It's important to understand that rabbits don't behave defensively without a good reason. Even though they're prey animals at their base, the kind of defensiveness and fear that I'm talking about is something they've learned just by being around uncareful humans. When a rabbit is consistently handled with force, or ignored, or startled, or just treated like an object instead of another living being, their nervous system adapts, just like ours would. But there's hope for those animals. Something remarkable happens when their environment changes. Placed in the care of someone who takes time with them, their perception changes. Hands they only knew as harsh are replaced by gentle hands. Before, they only knew loud, abruptive, and chaotic living environments. In the hands of caring humans, those voices soften. Expectations are replaced with patience, and as a result of consistent kindness and a good understanding of their harsh beginnings, even their physical condition can improve. Following harsh beginnings, sometimes it takes time for a rabbit to learn to trust again, and sometimes it happens quickly. All of them stop biting. They stop kicking. They stop bracing for impact whenever a human comes near them, and they begin to relax. Rabbits that are being worked with in a rehabilitation situation, especially for behavior, they start flopping beside you. They groom you. They finally rest peacefully on the sofa instead of cowering in a corner. I never once had to dominate any of these animals to see those remarkable changes. I just had to learn to speak their language, respect their biology, and show them that many of us humans are kind, gentle, and caring. That transformation taught me one of the clearest things I know. Kindness changes behavior. Not coercion, not control, definitely not discipline. Just kindness. Being kind to an animal includes learning everything you can about proper care and handling about their species, especially in a situation where rehabilitation is necessary. People sometimes ask me whether I believe animals have souls. I understand why that question comes up, because when you see an animal relearn trust, it feels deep and meaningful, something more than just instinct. I don't pretend to know the answer to questions humans have argued and warred about over centuries, but here's what I do know. Rabbits experience fear. They experience relief. They recognize individuals. They bond deeply, and they grieve when they lose their bonded partners. They remember harm, and they remember safety. They seem to have their own inner lives going on, parts of them that us humans probably know nothing about. When you really slow down and observe them, sitting on the floor and watching them closely, you can see it in their eyes. The transition from fearful to feeling secure. The return of trust, knowing they can live a safe life. Just seem to know at some point that they're finally okay. If someone doesn't want to call that a soul, that's all right. Call it consciousness or awareness or presence or whatever makes you feel comfortable. Whatever word we use, the responsibility remains the same. How we treat other living beings matters. Humans have not done a great job stewarding this planet or its inhabitants. History makes that painfully clear. Since rabbits are quiet and gentle and have been historically dismissed, their species paid the price for human carelessness, and that has happened again and again and again. Rabbits are known to suffer silently, Yet, when they experience consistent kindness and compassion, they forgive more easily than most people I know. That alone should humble us. I've watched rabbits who were once always hiding stretch out beside me without fear. Not because I trained them, but because I proved over time that I was safe. I've also had rabbits that were not abused or neglected placed in my care over the years. Trust isn't necessarily automatic with these animals. At some level, it is earned. It's just a bit more difficult with an animal that has not been treated well in its past. They require some extra patience, understanding, and commitment from their new owners. Once you've experienced earning trust by an animal who had every reason not to trust you, you don't forget it. They don't forget it either. Caring for animals that have been mistreated in the past has the power to change the way you see all animals. It changes the way you see responsibility and the way you define kindness. Kindness isn't sentimental. It's not a weakness. I don't know about you, but in my daily life, it's not even optional. Kindness is a measurable force that reduces suffering and restores trust. If that's not something worth practicing toward rabbits, other animals, and each other, then I don't know what is.